Welcome to the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast, bringing you the country's top podcast on the subject of internet marketing. I'm your host, Glenn Thayer, and today we're going to discuss website content. I'm here with CEO of Intuitive Websites, Tom Young, and the web marketing specialist / guru, Dennis McCarthy. Now, we find one of the greatest challenges in the internet is really being able to successfully market your website content. And since we all know that content is the most important part of a website, that's really the reason that users come to the website to read content, find out what you're all about. So let's talk about this. Let's start at the beginning. So I guess the biggest thing is creating content. Where do you start?
Yeah, content is real interesting. You know, Dennis and I have been on the web now for well over 10 years doing this, and it's really dawning on me more and more just how important content is. And with the advent of some really nice, sharp-looking templates that basically anyone can put on their site now, design on the web is not as big an issue as it used to be. You used to have to find, designers that were real creative and come up with a unique look for you. Those are all out there now in template form in your CMS system. But one thing you can never get away from is content that's going to grab the user and bring them in. And so what we're finding is there's kind of a series of things people have to think about when they get to doing content. And the first thing is, who's going to write this stuff? Who's going to write this content? Well, you've got to find someone that can get that done. You've got to find someone that can write the content. If you look in-house for this, if you look internally, the things they're going to deal with immediately is, I don't have the time to write website content. I'm already doing other things. And if I did have the time to write it, what am I going to write? And then how am I going to get the skills, not only skills as a writer, but skills as a writer for the web? So what and what we're trying to do is in our consulting efforts here is let our clients know that content has to be a priority. Website content has to be a priority in your business.
And we should probably begin the whole conversation with the fact that people don't read websites. So we're talking about content that is headline-ish, punchy, gets the point across very, very quickly.
So that's almost to on the end of being a copywriter for copy for television or magazine ads or something to that effect. That's right.
And so the bottom line question for most of our clients is going to be this: if it's a priority for us now, do we keep it in-house or do we go externally? And if you can't get it in-house, if you can't find someone that can write this type of content, then you've got to go and find a company that can do that for you.
Now, where does somebody go for copywriting for the web?
It's a great question. It doesn't really exist. I mean, there are some books out there. I brought a couple of books with me today. I'll share those titles in just a second. You can go to Amazon and do a search on web copy, and you'll see a lot of books out there.
The people who do it well are booked. That's the thing.
That's right. And so what I want to do in this podcast is give you a quick summary of, if you're going to write website copy, what do you have to learn to do? Well, number one, you have to learn how to write headers. And if you think about headers, think about the newspaper. I almost said the old time newspapers we used to get. When you think about newspapers, the headlines would grab you. And there were people that did nothing but write headlines. The headline would grab you, then you'd read the first sentence, then you'd read the second sentence, and before you know it, you've read the whole article, right? But it starts with the headline. Use small paragraphs, just like newspapers used to do. They were small paragraphs. No one was going to look at a headline and then see a chunk of text that was, 500 words long. Use small paragraphs with headers. Use captions on your photos, because people are drawn to photos, and when you have a caption on a photo, you're communicating 1,000 words right there.
And most of the time when you have a photo on your website, it's reinforcing your brand or reinforcing your keywords that you have.
It should.
You should be able to look at a website and not read a thing. Just look at the images and see if that tells the whole story. If that's the ideal that you should be working towards. Tell the whole story with your graphics.
Absolutely. And if you do feel a need to get more content on your site, try to do it in bullet points. Try to use the PowerPoint method of communicating, where you're succinct and you have bullet points. And if you have current content on your site, take a look at that content and say, I bet we could probably cut it in half and say the same thing. And in fact, we have an example of a website that just launched from actually an old friend of mine, and he's launching a site. It's consultativehealthcare.com. But right off the bat, the domain name doesn't really say what he does. He's not in the healthcare industry per se. He doesn't provide healthcare services. He provides insurance services for healthcare.
So the domain name is like the ultimate title of your writing.
Well, you know what's interesting about domain names and content is that, yes, absolutely, the domain name is critical. People start with the domain name. They have to type it in, or they have to type in your company name to find you, and that should be your domain name. But anyway, that's the starting point. The first piece of content on his homepage says, "Our mission at Consultative Healthcare." So right away, there's no header, there's no bullet items, and he's also breaking a big rule here, which is he's talking about himself as opposed to his clients. So our mission is this. How about focus more on, we're here to help you. You know, your needs are this, and we're going to help you, and then put those in bullet point items.
The target market needs to know that they've arrived home at a place that they're interested in when they get to your website. If your target market gets to your website and they can't tell that this is a place for them, that's a major problem. We call this the notion of the anti-website, websites that actually repel target market.
Or they do not. I mean, they can even have a do-nothing effect.
Yeah.
And so at best, you know, they'll do nothing and it'll be neutral. At worst, they'll decide not to use you guys or use your company because of the content. And one of the principal law that we have is the 10 out of 10 rule. And we talk about this a lot in our podcast. We talked about them. Is that when it comes to content, 10 users come to your website. 10 users need to understand what you do right off the bat within 5 or 10 seconds. They need to understand the value you provide. They need to see this in taglines and in bullet points on your home page. And for example, if we were to get to Raul's business here, Consultative Healthcare, we provide benefits and health insurance services. So we provide company benefits and health insurance. We need to see that right off the bat. And I would probably recommend taking a look at a new domain name that gets those terms in there. Like even consultativehealthcarebenefits.com would be a stronger.
Can you talk about the tagline, Tom? The somewhat nuanced tagline on this site is Consultative Healthcare leading the way.
Right. And once again, the taglines are so often written from the perspective of the business owner or the business itself, and not from the perspective of the website user. So leading the way means a lot to Raul and his business. He wants to be a leader in this field. He wants to do a great job. And that's fantastic. He's got to do that.
It doesn't mean anything,
it doesn't mean anything
to the user.
The user wants to know how they're going to solve their problem. So Raul is going to lead the way and solve the problem. But let's back up and say, let me show you how we're going to solve your problem. In fact, let me tell you why I'm different. And then get that content in.
You know, advertising used to mean this clever hook, this nuanced, clever hook that would draw people in and intrigue them. And then they would go and dig deeper with
the real thing, Coca-Cola, the real thing.
We've seen that for years before the web was invented. The web is not like that. People don't have time to figure out your clever, nuanced hook. You've got to hit them over the head with the fact that this is a company that does benefits consulting, right?
Yeah, another site we could look at for that is Convene Now, which is one of our clients that are having an issue with the tagline. It's just be direct. Tell people exactly what you do. And in fact, we'll pull up this website, Convene Now, and you can take a look at it. Once again, the domain is right off the bat one of these nuanced names, and you're probably thinking, what does that mean? Convene Now. What does that mean? It's some kind of a meeting or something like that. And then when the site comes up, you'll see that it's lead with significance. So 10 out of 10 people will have 10 out of 10 ideas of what lead with significance means. But what this is a Christian CEO and business leader organization. And they have roundtables and they meet so they can become better business leaders. So become a better Christian CEO or business leader. That's the kind of tagline that the site needs. It needs to be more
if the
direct.
target market, the Christian CEO, were looking at this homepage, would they know immediately that this is a place for them?
They would not. They would not know. The only way that this works is if they already know what Convene is and they have some pretty good information about it, and then they go here and it reinforces that information.
Then it's a branding website.
That's right, but it doesn't help. It's not going to help grow the business to people that don't know the brand. All right. And in fact, what Dennis said about the old way of communicating is so true. In fact, we have this term we call brochure copy. And because companies have such a hard time figuring out how to get website copy done, they usually go back to, well, who wrote the brochure copy? Well, it was our ad agency. Well, let's get that copy and let's put it on the website. So then you end up with a website full of this marketing speak type language.
It's an online brochure.
And then you have an online brochure, and basically online. This kind of content, this online brochure copy, doesn't say anything when you really look at it, and in many cases it's just way too much of it. It's like fluff.
Right. What's in it for me? Answer the question, what's in it for me?
So, you've got to cut through that to the real message and real benefit for your customers.
There's something interesting here, especially with Convene Now, that I'm seeing, is their tagline, lead with significance. Well, it's like a play on words.
Right, it is.
That they have the way it's written and the way it's spelled. So it's a little different. So I'm always going to look at it going, well, what exactly is significance? And I almost feel like I'm out of the loop because I don't know specifically what they're talking about.
It makes me feel insignificant.
It makes me feel insignificant. Yes, exactly.
So what this is doing is you're writing about your business in a way that will turn users off. And let me explain that a little bit. If you're going to write content for your website, any content that you write that's talking about you and your business would be a turnoff. Any content that you write that's about value for users or for your potential customers would get people excited and would move them toward a conversion. So, keep in mind that the number one thing that does convert website users is the content they're reading. So write about what they need, write about what they're there to do on the website.
So how does somebody go about developing a content theme then?
Well, I got a visual I use for people. If you imagine a room filled with 100 of your target market, and you had, I don't know, what's the average? 2 minutes to tell them something.
30 seconds.
What would you want them to not leave without? And you literally have a room filled with 100 target market visiting your website maybe every hour for some websites.
Oh, absolutely. We work with clients that have as many as 2 million visitors a year on a website. So websites can easily get into the millions of users. So what would you do if you had 2 million people in a room and you had 30 seconds?
So as they wander away, what are they left with? What are they going to remember about the experience they just had?
And you can sum that up in 3 or 4 central themes about your business. And then those central themes should then be reinforced in your navigation and your taglines. And you can expand upon those themes in your resources section and in your services section. But keep in mind, people can't take in more than that about what it is you do.
Really, the users are looking at the website. They come there. They first figure out who you are. That's the first question we ask with all user testing. What does this company do? And about 40% of the time, people can answer that question. So they figure out who you are. They develop... Are they professional? Is the site good looking enough that they look like a professional company? Then they immediately go to the how can they help me kind of thinking. So they're making personal connections between this website and their own brains. And then if they feel like the information on this website can help them enough with a problem that they need to solve badly enough, they'll move to conversion. If your website, just run it through that simple check and you'll have a successful website.
And what Dennis said is so important, too. We're not making this stuff up. I mean, this is not just 3 guys and some opinions on content. This is what we've seen through hundreds of hours of user testing sessions and also hundreds of hours of looking at Google Stats and figuring out and seeing, hey, look what people do on this website. Why are they ignoring this content? Why do they gravitate to this content and so forth?
Now, what have you been seeing lately as far as social, all the social sites being part of the websites? Because I'm finding more and more it's follow us on Facebook or be friends with us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. It might be there's a lot of large companies like Comcast are on Twitter now, and they have all these things. Should companies be putting all of their social marketing efforts on their website as well? So if they are on Facebook and have a fan page on Facebook, if they're on Twitter, should they put that information as content on their site?
Those sites are like windows to the web. Twitter, Facebook, it's like another kind of browser in a way.
Another search engine.
It's how you access all the information on the web through that starting place. So absolutely.
So if they're already on your site, you want to say, hey, follow me on Twitter.
Absolutely. And there's a little bit more to that, and that is that what's happening with Facebook and Twitter is the opposite of brochure copy. I mean, think about it. What people are doing is they're reading and communicating with one another as opposed to reading the brochure copy that's on so many websites.
And they want to connect with a person. I know we said that in another podcast. They want to connect with a human being, not a business.
Yeah, even if you're doing business with Microsoft or IBM, you still usually have one or two people that you're going to communicate with and develop a relationship. Absolutely.
Well, we have the client who does fertility. He's a fertility doctor. And with the user testing we did on that, every user wanted to go straight to see the pictures of the people they would be working with. It's a very human thing, and it was very difficult to find.
Yeah, we had a user say, if I can't see a picture of the doctor on this website, I'm going to go find him somewhere else.
And we went and looked at a competitor site, and the first thing they looked at was a bunch of great pictures of smiling nurses, and it made all the difference in the world.
Well, what are the action items? What are the key action items that our listeners need to look at when developing content?
Well, I mentioned a couple books. I did go to Amazon. I think Amazon probably recommended these for me based on other purchases. But anyway, Jerry McGovern, Killer Web Content, and Janice Reddish, Letting Go of the Words. A couple books to read there.
I like that title.
Yeah. And, of course, Don't Make Me Think, a book we've talked about quite a bit, is also good for content because they realize the importance of that. As soon as you do a user testing session, you immediately see, oh my gosh,
and I
content.
think, we keep talking about user testing kind of naturally as we're talking about content, but really the way to find out if your content is effective or not is to ask people what kind of message they get when they come to your website.
Yeah, don't ask them for their opinion of your content. Ask them things like, what does this company do? How can this company help you? What would you go see on this website? Then get them to get into that action mode as opposed to judgment mode.
And are you so interested that you'd like to contact them?
Right. So for the action item plan, definitely have something in mind for you here. Number one, assign someone to direct content efforts or write content. Decide if it's going to be internal or external, but assign someone to be the website content person for your blog, for your podcast, for your website, for all of it. Train that person. Get him to listen to our podcasts. Get him to buy the books and to learn how to write website copy. Get inside the head of the users and ask yourself, will 10 out of 10 people get this? And you might have to do user testing to figure that out.
And for the listeners that are going, how do we do user testing? We have a podcast for that. Just go through and you'll find it.
We have a podcast. We have a lot of content on it. And then write content for conversions. So as you write your content, if you want to learn more, contact us. If you want to learn more, here's a free resource. If you want to learn more, contact us for a free consultation, that sort of thing. And then keep in mind SEO efforts, and we have a lot of search engine optimization content on our site and our podcast. But when you're writing content, you have to keep that in mind as well. And then finally, realize that your website or your blog is a content generation machine, okay? You've got to do this on a regular basis. You've got to write content weekly or in some cases daily. A website is not a brochure. You're establishing yourself as an expert in a field. Absolutely. You don't finish the website, it's printed and sent out to 10,000 people and you're done. No, it's an interactive tool. It has to be updated on a regular basis.
Well, folks, you heard it here. This has been the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast. And for more information and to see all the available podcasts and much more, visit intuitivewebsites.com.